another birthday special for one of our patrons. And excitingly, I think this is the first time we've ever done this, actually. It's the second time round for Paul Cook. Paul, happy birthday once again.
Another year older and deeper in debt, as the old saying.
The terrible twos.
The terrible twos. I can remember your last appearance. I can remember you talking about, unless I'm completely mistaken, about a Trini Lopez album. And you talked about some Ashes to Ashes stamps. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, my purchase from Smith's, which was the single of Ashes to Ashes, which came with stamps for no apparent reason. Never stuck on anything, not legal tender. Couldn't put them on an envelope.
Oh, you couldn't.
Well,
do
the
that.
apparent reason was that you could keep them and talk about them on one of these Zooms. Yeah, that's what they were there for.
That's what they were there.
That's what they're all designed for. But that's fantastic. So you'll have to not repeat yourself. It's complete. Here he is back on his new tour with completely fresh material.
Yes. Can you talk about this for 30 minutes without repetition?
Deviation.
I thought that there should be like a freeze where it just says, previously on.
Yes, previously.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Previously, Paul Cook's birthdays.
Yeah.
So I think it was Radiogram growing up, Trini Lopez. I actually have a correction because.
Okay, good.
I said that my first ever gig was U2 at the Hemel Hempstead Pavilion.
I can remember that too, a £3 ticket.
£3 ticket where they crossed out Tuesday and written Wednesday.
That's it, written Wednesday.
Couldn't reprint them, and it actually wasn't. That wasn't my first gig. I really only remember my childhood and my teenage years through my friend Neil, who he would be my biographer if I had to write, because he remembers everything. And he said, no, what? He watched it and said, that wasn't your first gig. Your first gig was U2, but at St Albans City Hall, so the neighbouring town.
Got to get these things right.
It's so interesting, the way memory of these things works or doesn't work is that unless somebody challenges you, you keep repeating the same fictions to yourself, and you just reinforce it, don't you?
They say the best way to remember something is to forget it. By remembering it, you change it slightly every single time until suddenly U2 in Hemel Hempstead Pavilion is your first ever gig. Where there was some debate as to whether my first gig was actually Judy Tsook at.
Okay.
I've seen her a couple of times, and but then I thought, well, I hope it's U2. I mean, no offense to Judy Tsook, she was amazing live, but U2 is obviously way cooler, and that's the look I'm going for.
That's fair enough. Don't forget, all history is compiled this way.
Yes.
All history has arrived at because that's the story people prefer, I think.
Yes.
I'm convinced about that. I'm sure we know absolutely nothing about Henry VIII that's remotely true. But just
one of
what's
the
been
other
passed up,
Absolutely. One of the other things I said that the only thing I retrieved from my parents' house was the Trini Lopez album. And actually, there were a couple of others.
Okay. Nana Muscuri.
Over and over, my Nana Muscuri on Fontana.
I've got a mate who did her press when she was signed to Chrysalis Records in 1980.
Was she?
Said she was really, really good fun, and she was a bit of a hot ticket. Actually, she used to wear leather trousers, black leather trousers, and of course, I know. Whereas that whole image was kind of slightly librarian, wasn't it?
Definitely librarian. I was going to say I never saw anything saucy from Nana Muscuri.
No, but he said she was a bit of a one. Yeah.
I mean, they're down here. That's where the leather trousers are.
You can't see them. Not leather trousers. Not.
If it was a gatefold, the leather trousers would just flap down.
So now, one question about Nana Muscuri. Is she still with us?
Ooh, that's a good question. I fear not, but I could be. It's the kind of murderer or mathematician thing, isn't it? Where you show pictures and are they dead or alive, and you attribute death to people who are well and truly alive, like Johnny Mathis.
She's still with us.
Wow.
Still, according to Wikipedia,
Nana Muscuri is still with us. She was born in 1934.
She's 86.
She's 86.
And now I'm gonna make one point about Nana Muscuri. I find the leather trousers thing absolutely
thrown you, isn't it?
Gobsmacking, because she did look like a librarian, but also my memory of Nana Muscuri is that she absolutely stood stock still to perform, didn't she?
Ooh.
Am I right? I don't remember Nana Scurry dancing around or anything like that.
Didn't she stand on or didn't she sit on a stool? I can't remember now. But you're right, she was. Yeah, she was
a stationary concept, because also she was a kind of folky concept, wasn't she? Really?
Yeah.
That was her background, traditional Greek music, and it was a little bit like primary school teacher sings song,
They've got Scarborough Fair, The White Rose of Athens.
There you go.
My Friend the Sea.
That's classic.
Oh,
my Friend the Sea. Now, who produced that? Has it got credits on it? I want to know. Is it Ivor Raymond or somebody like that? It's on Fontana.
I think I would have changed my name to Ivor Raymond.
Ivor Raymond with an E on the end. You should do. Does it? Doesn't know. This is a kind of 60s Fontana record, presumably, or maybe early 70s, possibly.
I can tell you that the liner notes were written by Nick Massey, but
it's obviously it's a bit of a later reissue. That God, the old Fontana.
Nothing on the inside. The forever problem of trying to get.
Getting it right. Yeah, it's crappy. Crappy Phillips
stained in a sleeve as well. It's lovely. It's genuinely yellowed at the top. The edges.
Yes, absolutely.
Nicotine yellow.
I think, as I said last time, because my parents had one of those slotted record things, the sort of the metal dividers where they sort of just slotted in.
Like a toast rack.
Like a toast, exactly, like a toast rack. But so this stared at me. Nana Muscuri stared at me through most of my childhood and my teens, as long as I lived at home. At that and the Trini Lopez album, which was, so she watched over me as a child.
This is it.
So that's one of the reasons why it sort of haunts me, that picture.
Have you played it in the last 20 years?
No. Unlike the Trini Lopez album, which I Spotified and I listened to, and it was fantastic. I've got a turntable in here. I might put it on after.
Nana Muscuri she's never been kind of revived, has she? Really, she's never had the kind of second coming of. Although maybe
there was a BBC 4 documentary, I think, a few years back, and I think it was either BBC 4 or Sky.
God, what was the revelation? That's interesting, because there must be something about it, because it all seems so tame, didn't it?
I don't remember any revelations. I mean, I thought she had quite a sort of a pious life, really. I mean, she may have been a wild child, I guess, with the leather trousers and all.
Yeah.
Leather trousers. We didn't.
I've really stirred things up there.
Yeah, you really have. I'm reading from Wikipedia here. The British comedian Benny Hill impersonated Muscuri on the Benny Hill show. He didn't he?
Well, it was very easy to do that. All you needed was a big pair of glasses, big pair of bins.
Now this is it. Sorry, tangent alert. Tangent alert.
Yeah.
The most imitable, musical stars tended to have glasses, which is what made them imitable.
Buddy Holly,
obvious case. Buddy Holly was made famous by the fact that everybody did impressions of Buddy Holly. Do you know why Herman's Hermits are so called? Because Peter Noon used to do an impression of Buddy Holly, and the promoter in Manchester said he got him mixed up with Herman from some cartoon or whatever, and that's how the group got called Herman's Hermits, because he confused it with his Buddy Holly impression. It's absolutely extraordinary. And have we all done the impression of Roy Orbison, which we can all do with a pair of sunglasses? Take a pair of sunglasses. I don't have any to hand here. I don't know if anybody does.
Oh, you do it on your knee, don't you?
No, there you go. Right, this is what you're going to have to do. This is what you're going to have to do, Paul. Trust me. You're going to have to roll up your right trouser leg and then place those sunglasses on the trouser leg and get it in shot. Are you ready? Can you do this? Come on,
we did
Paul.
do this, didn't we? Yeah, it's kind of like,
where you go.
It's that kind of thing.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Roy Orbison. There you go. It works. It works every time. Sorry about that.
So I put my reading glasses back on and thought, it's really dark.
Yes,
that's great.
Anyway,
that's so true, because Michael Caine, that's how people used to impersonate Michael Caine, was we just put on a pair of specs and say, my name is Michael Caine.
Job done. Job done. You're halfway there. Anyway, so that's Norma Scurry.
And in fact,
Paul, what have you got? Come on, dig some stuff out.
There's another pair.
Oh, Keith.
It's Keith.
So I think I said last time, no one ever recognizes, me, myself, Mike, and Kate, my girlfriend, who go to the Weren't You, unless we sit next to Keith.
Oh, right. Okay.
But then by sitting next to Keith, nobody notices you anyway, because Keith is so prominent.
Yes, absolutely. And
you're rendered invisible.
I've been a cartoonist on and off for years and years and years, and glasses and beards, so Mark particularly, they're a gift if you get asked to do a caricature, because it's just a lot of shading and then the glasses. As long as you get the glasses,
absolutely,
fine.
Whereas
no facial hair, then it becomes much more difficult. People take it more personally if you don't have sort of facial hair and glasses. Because people, that's definitely them. And another fact which I seem to remember is that I've forgotten his name. Who was in Eric Sykes? He wore glasses, but they were actually his hearing aid, so there was no glass in them.
Oh, really? Oh, he was deaf, wasn't he?
And so ingeniously had incorporated.
So he didn't even have plain glass in them. He must have done.
No, you could have poked him in the eye, and I think they were just.
So was he kind of? I don't know an awful lot about Eric Sykes. Was he deaf from kind of quite early on in his career?
I have no idea. It's one of those stupid facts that sticks.
Right, sticks.
That
he could have joined Adrian Devoy's famous list that was published in Q many years ago, which was called something like "Famous People About Whom We Only Know One Fact,"
which is really, really good.
It's a great
idea. I can remember us putting that together in the office and having a big debate about Ted Heath. So you can't have Ted Heath. Because there's two
he was
facts.
Prime Minister.
No, there's two facts. One is ego sailing. The other is he plays the organ. That's two facts. It doesn't count.
Doesn't work.
Doesn't work. Was it Ken Livingstone keeps newts?
Sarah Miles.
Sarah Miles drinks her own wee.
Drinks her own urine.
Yeah.
I think, wasn't it Stuart McConey who did the sort of the fake facts, and the two that have persevered is one that David Bowie was a qualified FA referee. And the other one was
who played the solo on Baker Street?
Bob Holness.
Bob Holness, that's right. Bob
Holness. If you take it off his Wikipedia page, people keep putting it back on because they believe it should be there because they know
I think it's been forgotten. That's right.
That's really unfair. He played that sax solo.
He never gets any credit for it.
Never gets any credit. I'm going to correct that.
It's really interesting, because going back to what you just said, Mark, it is surely the case that we know hardly anything about Henry VIII.
I don't think so. We know how high he was, and we know that he had a very bad accident falling off a horse in a jousting competition.
Yes, he did.
Which gave him a lot of physical pain, and that has been the excuse in the modern day for him taking out some of his discomfort by beheading various of his wives.
Well, I know.
The poor old guy. He was in pain.
We know he got married. We know he got married 6 times. That's established fact.
Yeah.
But pretty much everything else.
Nothing. There's some evidence about his diet, which is really interesting. That this was the days pretty much before green vegetables. It's root vegetables, salt beef, and boiled chickens, wasn't it? And his basic diet was, I think, he'd get up and have 3/4 pound of solid beef, salt beef, washed down with literally one boiled fowl, and maybe a mangelwurzel or a turnip, and that would be it. He would then belch loudly and go back to bed.
Yeah, he also he wrote the theme song for all ice cream vans as well.
Was that Greensleeves?
Yeah.
He was a pioneer of the ice cream trade. He didn't even know it. Absolutely.
Yes, the herald.
Yeah. So what else you got to show us there? Have you dug anything else out? Go on.
I have a few bits and pieces.
Oh, right, good.
One of the things that occurred to me when I was looking through my singles collection was all of those singles that you've got where you think, where are they now? What are they doing?
People, yeah.
The people, or just the bands do maybe one or two singles. So let's see how many of these you actually remember.
Oh, come on. Bring on, come on down.
Bearing in mind it's 80s for me, so a lot of these are my awakening as a musician myself, and as somebody loved music beyond just listening to chart stuff was in the 80s. So we have that.
The Sinatras.
I don't really remember the Sinatras.
I remember the name.
Yeah, I don't know anything about.
But then again, there was a group called Wasn't There Not? It says that Russell Hott used to say, Was There Not?
Yes.
Wasn't there a group called the Trash Can?
Trash Can Sinatras, there was.
Yes, absolutely, there was. And I think they predate them, but apparently, according to my friend Neil, as I said, who knows more about me than I do, I saw them supporting U2 at Aylesbury Friars, which has just had a resurgence recently. Then this is an interesting one because...
Sorry, I'm going to interpose. Sorry, Friars has reopened.
I believe
we went there a lot.
Is it in the same venue?
Back in the day.
No, I think they tore that down. That was,
it used to be the kind of town hall or market hall.
Yeah, it was an
old
Victorian building, I can remember.
So is it Dave Stopp still involved?
Oh, I have no idea, because there was a whole they were campaigning for a David Bowie statue, I think, and I think they got that. And then there was suddenly a whole load of archive material they released. So I think they've been trying to scan all their posters, because when I was growing up in Hemel Hempstead, you would go to the record shop in the old town, and they would always have posters in the window for those gigs, and they were always exactly the same design. And I never kept any of them, which of course is they now go for hundreds of pounds. But I saw loads of gigs there. It was one of my favorite gig venues.
Oh, was it a place people loved playing, Friars?
I saw the classic. What about the Blockheads there?
I introduced. Shall I tell you my claim to fame?
Yeah, so you did something for Whistle Test, didn't you?
No, not Friars. No, I introduced the Modern Lovers on stage.
Oh my goodness!
At Friars Aylesbury.
That's exciting. Can you remember what you said?
I can.
Go on.
You should ask me, Mark.
No, go on. I'll just repeat it.
I said, ladies and gentlemen, from New England to Old England, the Modern Lovers.
That's good.
She's pithy.
Yeah.
That's why they pay you the big bucks.
That's why I got paid nothing on that particular occasion.
I can still remember some of you. I remember you introducing Aswad once.
Oh, well, I had to
harder than this, they do not come.
I had to do that 3 times because they bloody cameras weren't running.
Yeah.
But, I like to think from New England to Old England, and I like to feel that there were people there who could still remember me saying that, because most things that people say on stage to introduce groups are not memorable at all. Whereas if you can say anything that's pithy, people will file it away. It becomes part of their memory of the occasion.
It deserves to be remembered. It's good.
Yes.
You put some effort into that.
So you're talking about a record shop. Is Aylesbury used to have, and I've got an advert somewhere in my photo collection of an advert that the record shop in Aylesbury used to announce themselves. And I think they launched in 1971, and I can't remember the name of the place. It's called something like Cloud Records or whatever. And it's called, or Head Records, whatever. And it goes... The proud boast is no classical, no straights.
That's good.
Which is very Aylesbury, that is.
That's good.
That's very Aylesbury,
I think the clue is in the Head Records, probably.
Yeah, well, I think it was called something like that, And I think Dave Stops.
You've got to make an assessment before you go in as to whether or not you look too straight to be allowed in there, haven't you? And there must be people who went in there and thought, am I going to be slung out?
No, I think they meant no straight records. I think they meant don't come in here. I think don't come in here looking for a Tom Jones album.
I see. No. I thought you meant nobody coming here with a rolled umbrella or something.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Shirt and tie, get out.
Yeah. Anyway, right. So that was the Sinatras. That's how far we got with the Sinatras. We know nothing. Right. So, moving on.
Yes. Okay. So again, probably. I mean, who, what, but. 3 of the members of this, again, this my friend Neil telling me this in a conversation just before we did this, and the band lineup is Paul Cummins, Simon Godfrey, Angela Yeager, and Simon Raymond. Now,
it's Cocteau Twins. The Cocteau Twins.
Cocteau Twins, and went on to set up Bella Union.
Sorry, and who was the first Simon? There was another Simon.
Simon Godfrey, who I didn't have a chance to look up. Rings a bell with the band Weekend, but I don't think that was him.
No, he wasn't in Weekend, I don't think.
And Angela Yeager went on to be in Pigbag.
Oh, really?
Oh, good. That's good.
Obviously, don't think she sang on Dad.
No.
The QPR theme.
Yes. I mean, there's loads of these, but Jane Kennaway and Strange Behaviour.
Jane Kennaway.
She wasn't.
Did
she go on to be in?
Or is that Jane Eyre and the Belvederes? I'm getting her confused with Jane Kennaway.
I had this one. These like singles in your collection that when you flip past them, you can remember that one song, but haven't done or bought anything else by them.
Yeah.
The Passage XOYO again. I think it was on one of the compilation albums that the Cherry Red compilation.
So Jane Kennaway was on DRAM. Is that right?
Didn't she go on to be in a significant group? You're looking up, Dave.
Well, I just looked her up, and DRAM comes up. Is it DRAM?
Yeah, it is DRAM. DM436. For the computer.
She didn't go on to be in a Modette or something. No.
So, I mean, obviously, if anybody wants to offer me huge sums of money for this incredible rarity, then
these strike me as the kind of records that you would have picked up for 10 for 50p kind of thing. Or is that no? Or did you buy them?
No, I think I bought that full volume, as they say, but as opposed to this one, which actually is, I mean, you're not going to read it. It's The Boy with the Thorn in His Side by the Smiths, but I bought it in Boots. And it was reduced to 40p.
Well, bargain.
God. I know.
But then again, reduced because you don't have the original sleeve, probably.
I mean, very possibly. I mean, it's got a nice.
Yeah.
It probably got separated from its sleeve in the old master bag system.
But I don't remember Boots selling singles. I mean, I remember Smiths, obviously, but I remember Boots having a singles rack.
Oh, God. Boots holds that single. Boots were, we were talking about this the other day with, I can't remember who, that if you bought records in the 60s and the early 70s, 9 times out of 10, you bought them in Boots or Smiths. It's just what you did. They were in every medium-sized town in the UK, and they'd have a record department, usually presided over by a disapproving lady with a tight perm wearing a nylon coat who really would rather have been on the sweets counter or the perfume counter. Was a bit resentful, the fact that she had to deal with oiks like you coming along.
But then again, I think they only sold chart singles, didn't they? I mean, you couldn't get anything off the beaten track. Wasn't it the top 40?
Well, they'd have records going into the top 40. You can't just stop the top 40. Nobody can. Because you've got the records that people buying.
Boots officials being incredibly useless when it came down to information. If you asked them any information about it, they got quite cross.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, you wouldn't have. Yeah, they were slightly better in Smiths.
Whereas if you wanted to talk about hair conditioner or a toothpaste,
they might advise you that possibly you shouldn't drink while you're listening to this, or if you only take one of these, don't take two.
Yes, absolutely.
Listen to it. Space 4 hours.
To that on the hour every hour till symptoms subside. That's right. Very good.
This one I picked up from my stack just because.
Standing
flat.
Standing
but it's a version of Day Tripper, as in
Day Ripper.
And if I get the chance, I will put it on an MP3 and I'll send you a copy of it.
You're telling me that you went into a shop and you exchanged coin of the realm.
I did.
Legal tender. And how much would a single have been in those days?
I mean, if the Smiths one was 80p down to 40p, I would have thought it was probably more expensive then to buy a single than it is to buy a digital download now.
Well, yeah, so it's £1 or something like that, isn't it?
Probably, yes. I don't think there's.
You spent £1 on it. Wow.
I mean, but look at that; it's worth it just for the cover alone. I mean, it's a you know, every house has one, but it's only when you see a photograph you realize just how amazing taps are.
You see, this.
But the thing is, you would have had you took a chance on that, didn't you? Where would you have heard that record prior to purchase? Or would you have read about it in the music press? Or
pretty convinced that every.
Did you just think that's a good sleeve? I'm going for it.
I mean, I have been known to do that. That is to my. I've done that in sort of French supermarkets, taking a chance on CDs by bands I have no idea what they're like. And that's,
see, I'm going to have to rethink everything I thought about the record business in the light of this conversation. Because I have always contended that the overwhelming majority of records in the days when people put records out sold not one single copy. You know, because I think it's quite good to know that, you know what I mean? Because that's what happens with the overwhelming majority of records. But that's not the case, because the overwhelming majority of records clearly sell one copy to Paul Cook.
Hello.
There he is.
He's
the man who did it.
Now, I would hazard a guess that every single one of these was on John Peel. That would be.
I think that's more like it.
That's
precisely the kind of thing John Peel would have played. You would have made a note of it and gone out looking for it.
Oh, okay.
Precisely.
Yes, and so you know, and there's a lot of Margo Random and the Space Virgins.
Yeah,
hold that up again.
Margo Random and the Space Virgins.
Exactly.
That's good.
Obviously, not a lot.
Wouldn't you love to know how many copies of that genuinely did sell?
Yeah, because you don't. I mean, I suppose. Yeah, is there anything that lists sales? I suppose there must be.
No, not really. No, there isn't actually. There's a very good point. I mean, I don't think Margo and the Space Virgins will ever have received a royalty statement from whoever the record company was. They will have been well in debt to the record company.
However, if I worked in advertising, I would be very arch, and I would go through my record collection and I would put that on a car advert. It's a cracking track.
All right, okay.
Booming drums, you know, it would work really well on a car advert. And you know, all we had to do is have a car going along the Thames, you know, or south of the River Thames, and Margo Random, or I'm sure that's not her real name, would suddenly receive a royalty check for God knows how much. I could change the course of her life.
Possibly.
But she exists on Wikipedia. Oh no, she exists on the internet anyway. There's information about her, I think.
Who is she?
No, I'm not. I haven't got that far, but there's information about her records actually. Well, wouldn't it be wonderful if it got back to her that we were talking about her? Because that must happen very rarely in some small corner of a foreign field.
Yes,
I know.
Mrs. Rand, they were talking about you on the internet.
Yes, yeah. You can quit your day job. You're coming back.
Yeah, reform the band quick.
They're on
an album called South of the River Thames. There we are.
Yes, I mean, I don't. It doesn't say from the album, so I'm guessing that maybe there was an album. Yeah, I mean, the Farmers Boys, they were a little.
Farmers Boys, yeah, from Norwich, weren't they? Or they're Norfolk? Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Kid Jens used to play them all the time. I can still hear his voice. The Farmers Boys. You used to love them.
saw them live, and the keyboard player had a little Casio keyboard, which he had on an ironing board, which I thought was very delightful.
Are they on EMI, the Farmers Boys?
They think they went to EMI. This was
didn't they?
This wasn't.
It was supported by the Higsons in the early days.
Yes, that's what I'm confusing with.
There's that kind of very angular pop that was around for a while. All the Go-Go's went, I don't want to live with monkeys. That were the two Higsons.
That's it. Yeah.
Whereas the Farmers Boys were kind of, I think it's the first flexi disc I ever owned that was on Flexi Disc magazine. That was a Farmers Boys track.
Flexi Pop.
Flexi Pop. Yes, absolutely. Which is online now. There's an archive of Flexi Pop online. Of course.
There's an archive of everything, ultimately. It just is.
Do you know we ought to? That's interesting. If there is an archive of Flexi Pop online, do you know what we should do? If they, I don't know whether they've fallen out or not, but we could record something with the editors of Flexi Pop where we go through some old issues. That'd be quite funny because you know who they were? They're Barry Kane. And Tim Lott.
Tim Lott. Tim Lott's still around. Tim Lott, very successful writer and novelist.
Yeah.
Wrote a great book called Inner City Blue. Was it about?
He wrote more than one. He wrote a book called The Smell of Dried Roses.
That's right.
Really good book.
Really good book.
Anyway, carry on. carry on.
And then last one in kind of this series of things is Clark Kent, which.
Oh yeah, that's on. Is that on? No, open it up. It should be on bright green kryptonite. There we are. Yes.
Yes, there was a 10-inch.
It was an A&M record.
But the reason I mentioned that is the reason I had that. I didn't know who Clark Kent was. No one did at the time, obviously, even though everyone does now. But I was on a TV show when I was a kid. I was the Banana Star. I don't know if I talked about this last time, but. And he was the guest on the previous week. So they had a massive box of these luminous green singles, which had obviously not been able to offload on kids the week before. People go, no, I don't want that. You know, I want Duran Duran or whatever. And, but there's me and
great. With a film crew.
With a film crew. So I was interviewed as the Banana Star because I was a good drawer. And that was my shtick. I was interviewed by the girl from EastEnders, whose name escapes me at this moment in time, who was about 9. And I was shot in 16mm film. That's how old it was.
It's so nostalgic seeing BBC Personnel, Dave, isn't it? The girl with the clipboard there had a big yellow script, which everything was scripted, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Nothing quite
to within an inch of its life. Yeah.
And all the cameramen were men.
All were men, and all wore quilted jackets inside and out. Yeah.
But that was Southern television, so not as fancy.
Oh, great!
All right. There would have been somebody in the area smoking a pipe. Undoubtedly.
Yes, indeed.
Pipes went along.
Somebody has to be a union official as well, sitting in the corner saying, "Don't touch that sofa. I'll move that. You're not allowed to touch the sofa."
It's
very complicated.
Presented by Bill Oddie, and
oh god,
wow!
I didn't talk to Bill Oddie, but I did watch John Cooper Clarke shove an enormous piece of ham in his mouth. Literally from the centre in, so just to fold it in on him, which was quite remarkable. And the rich kids were on the same show as me as well, which was they were very close.
Kids TV. That's something. Sorry, has anybody written a book about British kids TV?
I mean, it's all that because the Saturday Banana was that show that wasn't as popular as Tiz was, that was on during the summer break or the break in filming. So you had your BBC, your kind of swap shop. And then there was always one on the ITV.
It was a break, wasn't it? It's like Get Set for Summer. That thing that did the thing about smash hits years ago, Mark. That was one of those
it was.
replacement shows. Get Set for Summer.
It's
but my point remains. The world, surely, of Saturday morning kids TV has got to be interesting, hasn't it?
I mean, I would have thought, again, there's so many people that appeared on it when
everybody appeared.
Well, they must have the clips, mustn't they? There's some lovely ones of the Clash on Swap Shop, being incredibly hungover, having been up all night to be able to go to a television studio at 7 a.m.
This is
completely uncooperative.
It was where you plugged your record, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that's the place to do it. That's why Britain had loads of when MTV started in the States. That's why British groups did well because we had all these clips because of Saturday morning kids TV.
Well, a good friend of mine who's a journalist worked as a guest getter on This Morning when it was based up in Liverpool, and he dealt with, I think it's Nikki Chapman. I think that's her name.
Yeah.
She went on to be
yeah.
She was plugging Take That when they were, sort of running around in their pants,
right,
and playing various sort of club gigs. And she got them on, and they obviously were huge. So there must be loads of those kinds of pieces or loads of clips if they haven't gone into landfill. I mean, unbelievable as it may be, but I have a friend who is a researcher. She clears archive material, and sadly, the clip of me on the Saturday Banana, no one has preserved it for posterity.
Really,
it would make a really good channel for BBC 4 documentary thing, wouldn't it? Just a collection of all those moments. So nostalgic.
Your moment in the kind of like your child moment in the stars.
People still talk in a mystified way about Radio 1. I think it was the Radio 1 Roadshow where there's an island in the middle of a lake where the basic rollers are playing, and there's a motorboat being driven around with just two people in it. One is Tony Blackburn, and the other a Womble, and they go. Those moments just sum up what the 1970s was like.
You'll be haunted by that image.
Yeah, you would.
Your life, aren't you?
You would.
You can't imagine. that. Yes, indeed. So what have I got? Oh yeah, so I have a very, and this is something that when you read, people can probably help me, but I have a love of cover versions.
All right.
So I've got dug out a few of the cover versions I've got. One is Izzy Roy, whose version of the Coronation Street theme is a reggae version, which is particularly
reggae version of the.
That's good.
That's
I like a reggae version of things, and for some reason, so that's a reggae version of "Staying Alive" by the Bee Gees.
Oh my goodness!
By Richard Hayes. Now, my friend Jerry got this for £1 in one of the. You were talking about those sort of 5 CDs or 5 singles for £1. He got this in one of those packs where it was just 4 absolutely execrable, 12 inches. And
can we? Is that reggae as well? Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I think we've stumbled on an interesting. All these conversations throw up something. Was there a period of time? I put it to you, Millard. There must have been a period of time, possibly as long as 10 years, when literally every hit record was followed by a reggae version. Because there must have been in Jamaica or, I don't know, the local areas of the UK or wherever there was a large Jamaican population, or there was just people who just listened to reggae. Yeah. They would only listen to reggae because that's the only possible explanation for why you would do a reggae version of what were those things? The Coronation Street.
Coronation Street. Why not? Absolutely.
But nobody's doing that for artistic purposes, are they?
No, there must be a market for it.
Musicians are not turning up saying, "Do you know what?
That would sound really good." The Job Scar version.
I've had this for years. I've only just noticed that the brick wall has been ripped out, open to reveal the Jamaican beach behind.
So there must have been an appreciable sector of the population who only bought reggae records.
This one's a special limited edition, which probably means it still didn't sell as many as
very
That's
limited.
Great.
They probably meant DJ. There were probably DJs who wanted them.
But it's Staying Alive one side, and If I Can't Have You the other.
It must have been the case.
And I think that Investigators doing Hawaii 5-0.
Again, reggae style.
Again, reggae style, absolutely. This is the one I walked into, one of the super cool record shops in Soho, and I'd heard it. I think, again, I'd heard it on John Peel and wanted to go and buy it and was not cool enough to go in this shop, but, mustered enough courage to ask, and I had like one copy and I bought it. And the guy still didn't think it. He looked at me with derision throughout the whole...
It's appalling, isn't it? People who record it's just...
What are you doing in here?
Such snobbery. That's a regular conversation.
I was in a record shop only a few weeks ago in Soho, and I'm as old as I am, and I've worked in record shops. I shouldn't be intimidated by anybody behind a counter. And there was something I wanted to ask a question about, and I looked at the guy and I thought, no, I'm not going to bother. I just turned and went out the shop. Yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Really,
But those people. We both worked for HMV, and in the period I was there from 1990 to 1999, and the people that worked there. So some people are, many of them are still my good friends. Was so knowledgeable about their particular field. So if they were a heavy metal fan, they would be on the heavy metal section, and they would know everything. Yeah. Same with the reggae, same with the dance, same with the easy listening, classical. It didn't matter. And I think you'd be hard pushed to find that without someone who was a one-man band who, if they're not working in the shop is shut, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But they found it impossible not to advertise their disapproval if you were buying something they didn't like. Dave and I had this conversation the other day about Old Grey Whistle Test when we presented that. And we were just as guilty. We found it really hard to say, and here is Marillion, without kind of looking at the camera with a kind of slightly kind of, wearing a cartoon wavy line for a mouth, Marillion. Wow, wow, wow.
That's why Jules Holden's had such a good career for so long.
He's so enthusiastic about everybody.
His introduction is always the same. They're fantastic.
They're brilliant.
People goes fantastic centre, whoever it is.
And his thing is brilliant because he does it because I've asked him about this in interviews. He does it because they're fellow musicians.
Yeah.
And a fellow musician cannot in any way belittle another fellow musician. Whether they like what they do or not is not the point. They're all musicians together and they're the brotherhood. Whereas we were journalists and they were bands we didn't like.
Yeah, but
you can't help it.
It's the kind of music in the
rock
round.
snobbery. Without it, we virtually wouldn't have a podcast, to be honest.
Well, I don't know who came up
with the main engines.
The sort of that format, because all those bands are looking at each other, and you see them when someone does some incredible song that the next band that's got to follow them. You know, it's not like a support act and then a support act and the main act. Everyone gets a chance, and you can blow the other bands away. You know, and it can make like C6 Steve. It can make your career, but you don't follow someone like C6 Steve if you're a sort of a very fey folk artist. You know, it doesn't work. You know. In fact, actually, on that, one of the things that my friend Neil did remind me is that I've actually George Michael came to see me play once.
Good Lord! When he was George Michael?
I mean, I hate to say I never reciprocated and went to see him live, which is a terrible shame.
Was that when he was well known?
Oh no, of course not.
No.
No.
So how do you know he was there?
Because a lot of my sentences seem to start with my friend Neil. And he played in a band called Eduardo Brillcream's Asphalt Roof Orchestra, which was kind of a sort of a Bonzo Dog Doodah band kind of thing. And one of the saxophone players in that band is a guy called Big Al Humphreys. He played in a band called Souls Valiant, keep up, or you know. So this is a rock band, but very vague. And Souls Valiant had Andrew Ridgeley's brother was in the band. so when Eduardo Brillcream's Asphalt Roof Orchestra played at the White Hart in Hemel Hempstead, I guessed it on one track, a track I'd written in the 20s style, called Me and My Baby Tonight. Of course, why wouldn't it be? And apparently he was in the audience. Didn't meet him, but Andrew Ridgeley and George Michael were there.
There you go.
I have to say,
you were playing with the Roof Orchestra that night.
I guessed it in one. I came on as a Jolly Jack Tar, so I was basically dressed as a sailor. Probably not for the first time in my life.
That's really good.
And but I mean, the call never came after that. A bit like this ending up in landfill. That later in his career, I didn't get a call from George saying, we really want someone to do a 20s pastiche on one of my albums, and could you duet?
Oh God.
But yes, apparently there's a version with Big Al playing the saxophone solo of
even that's very Bonzos. Having a member called Big Al something.
Big Al, yes. And you want to have a guess at how tall Big Al?
Yeah, I was going to say he's quite
Big
small.
Al probably 5'1".
Yeah, pretty much. Yes. One of the shtick was they would pick him up and move him about while he was playing.
Right.
It's like it ain't half hot, Mum. If you're called Lofty, you were very small, weren't you? If you're
Sing
Stilts,
Lofty.
Sing Lofty. If you're called Stilts, you were you were tiny. Yeah.
I did one.
Still makes a bit low.
I used to guess with them occasionally, and on drums, and I'm not a very good drummer, but everything is that's pretty much every 20 song. But they have one song where you have to do a solo, and everyone gets their solo, tuba solo, banjo solo, all that kind of business. And it came to me on this one gig where I was just sitting in for the drummer who was off doing something else, and the only thing that I could do was "We Will Rock You." It was the only thing that came to mind. So in the middle of a 20s song, I did just a boom, boom, bah. And the incredible thing is, immediately everybody started doing that. It's like catnip. It's just people cannot help themselves. Ruined that part of the gig. Whichever.
Absolutely, never asked you back.
Yes, indeed.
That's what they call in the movie business pulling focus, isn't it? When you do something, you distract.
It's also that moment where your brain kind of freezes and you think, "What shall I do? What's the
what works?"
There it was. So
So what are you doing on your birthday this year?
I don't know. It's been a quiet one. It's been an odd year. I've had I was made redundant earlier in the year, so that wasn't a great thing. You know, there's one of those things when you're furloughed, which I had just been when we last spoke. The furlough is basically a way of, can we do without you? Do you know what? Yes, we can. Redundancy loomed. I've accidentally started a band in the interim, which was good, and I will plug the band briefly. But
do.
Did anyone see the BBC Four documentary on the Festival of Britain from 1950?
No.
So basically, the Festival of Britain in 1951 is amazing. I would wholeheartedly recommend finding the documentary. I think it's off iPlayer at the moment, but the band name came from this exhibition. So, you know, the previous decade, post-war, everything had been grey, rationing. And the Festival of Britain was on the South Bank. It's obviously how the Royal Festival Hall got built, and they had lots of other things going on. And it's amazing, you know, there's lots of colour footage, and there's a fairground. They built an enormous auditorium there, very similar to kind of the Millennium Dome. But part of it was this massive sculpture called Skylon, which is the name.
Oh, yes, that's right.
And that is Skylon, and that's a stamp. So Skylon, it stayed up for the duration of the festival, then it got taken down and melted into spoons and knives, or letter openers, I think, actually, by the company that actually built it. And actually, yes, it says here in aid of the Greater London Fund for the Blind. It's
pretty amazing. That's 1951.
Do you wish it was still there? Do you wish it had remained?
Yes, because
wouldn't it look so ahead of the game if it was?
Oh, wouldn't it look odd? I'll tell you what. When you fly into JFK in New York, if you take a cab, you go. I think you should go past Shea Stadium, don't you, into the city, and you pass the site of the New York World's Fair from whenever it was. I can't remember. Was it 30s or 40s? And there is still an enormous great globe that was erected for that. And it kind of looks a bit sad, you know, because everything's just changed around it. And it doesn't look charmingly antique. It just looks weird. And I just wondered if the same would apply with the Skylon. I don't know.
I think where it was it's where if you're on the South Bank now, there is a restaurant and cocktail bar called Skylon, and I think that
is there really.
So basically sat on that raised bit just before Hungerford Bridge, and I think that might be the steps to. I think that might be Hungerford Bridge.
Just before Hungerford Bridge, the pedestrian bridge, the footbridge.
Yes, I think it was basically in that bit just by the Skylon restaurant. So if you were looking at the front of the Royal Festival Hall, it was just to the right.
And that's called Skylon.
So it would have remained. I think a lot of the rest of it was behind, which is where like the IMAX is now, and where other things, they sort of cleared an entire space. But there are pictures of it in the documentary of what it looked like before they built anything on there. And of course, like a lot of London, heading from
after the war,
Bridge, all of that going down to Tower Bridge was almost derelict space.
Rubble.
So London is all of that's regenerated. It's a nice place to walk at the time. There's a couple of films I've seen from that era that are on one of those obscure movie channels, and you know, there's just nothing there. It's just not even.
Oh, it's like, do you remember The Optimists of Nine Elms? Do you remember that movie? It's shot around. Oh yeah, all shot around Battersea. Extraordinary, and it's just nothing there because now there was the kind of period of the wharfs and the industry, and then there's now just high-rise flats.
Of course, now though, this week we have seen the opening of the first new tube station in London, hasn't there?
Yeah, two new ones, I think.
Well, Battersea Power Station.
Yeah, that's right, Battersea Power Station.
And I was very touched to see that loads of train nerds got up very early in the morning in order to be on the first one that went through 5:30 or whatever.
They did some interviews with the people on them, and you could imagine how thrilled you'd be if you lived for 20 or 30 years, and it was always a really, really long walk to the nearest tube, and suddenly there's a tube literally opposite your house or whatever. You'd be made up. You couldn't believe it. It was a very good story, a proper good news story.
It was Jubilee line, wasn't it? 77, for obviously being the Jubilee, but that was the last new line, I think, that was built. New stations, other than they've linked up the overground in London to build sort of the ring around the outside. But Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I do wish it was still there. But I recommend the documentary. It's a fascinating because
so is your group called?
The group's called Skylon, presumably.
Well, it's funny you should mention that. We are Skylon, yes. So
right, okay.
There we are.
Shameless plug. But I mean, I think part of the name is that sort of optimism that the idea of this enormous erection, so to speak, was a sign of optimism and a look to the future. The idea of plastics being the things that
absolutely.
How could plastics ever be a problem?
Yes. So Mark and I both watched The Graduate in the last week. It's on the BBC iPlayer.
Yes.
And his 21st birthday or whatever, his graduation birthday, an uncle takes him aside. I'm just going to say
one word. Benjamin? He goes, sir? Sorry, he said, plastics. Will you remember that? That's right. So it's a great future in plastics.
Yeah, brilliant. It's now nothing seems more historical.
I know.
The idea of plastics. So, right, so you don't know what you're doing. Is your birthday today?
It is on Monday, so in a few days' time.
Oh, right. Okay, well.
It's always low key. I mean, you see a few friends and have a few drinks and do a little dance, sing a little song, and get down tonight.
Right.
Oh, right. Good. That's good.
So, are you going to give us another greatest record ever made or anything like that to finish? Or
I'm going to do exactly what I did last time.
Okay,
with one of the same records.
The same record. Fair enough. So things haven't changed.
So this is obviously a very disturbing looking record.
Right. What was that again?
This is a band called Sudakistan, and very similar. I had Sumi last time, and it's about how music can change the course of your life in terms of using it to go on holiday, gig tourism, getting to know an artist. Because now Spotify Weekly threw up this Sudakistan album, or threw up a track while I was listening one week. Sat bolt upright at work, thought, "My God, this track is amazing."
So this popped up on your Do You Like Me have a Discover Weekly playlist?
I do.
So it provides things based on your normal listening diet. Yes?
How did you arrive at that?
I'm going to say that's my point.
What were the coordinates? What algorithm comes up with a man with a horse's head?
Fans with horses head on the cover, Godfather, no, I mean, it's garage. It's kind of garage, psych. A lot of the band are, I think 4/5 of the band are South American, and one member is from Sweden. Now, the label, this is, again, why it's a similar story to last time. The label is a label called Punk Slime, which, as you would expect, is, lots of loud garage music. Amazing label, based in Stockholm by a guy called Luke, who's actually from Leicester. And he's one of those, I mean, he's young in relative terms to me. He's very young. One of those people who set up a record label almost by accident and now represents lots of bands. And it's one of those things, having loved music so much all my life, one of the things I'm always heartened by is the amount of people that are still running small imprint labels, and nothing to do with the majors. And they are scraping a living together. Sometimes they make a bit more money. Sometimes one of the records is a success. Most are probably averagely successful. Some of them are subscription models. And I find that unbelievably heartening for the kind of the future of music, that it takes music out of the hands. So, I can, put a CD together, release it, or have a download, and that can go places, or I can get someone to plug it, whatever it is. But music is in my hands now, which I find fascinating. But I'm just, incredibly impressed, other than the fact that I've been to music. But we've again been to Stockholm on numerous occasions. Every year he has a thing called the Slime Ball, which is he puts on where he has maybe sort of 20 bands that play in one venue in Stockholm, and they're all on his label. And I just think it's amazing that there's this young man who's just got this incredible label. If you don't like the music, obviously it's not going to chime with you. But I just think the entrepreneurship and just the sheer tenacity of someone running a record label when they're from Leicester and they live in Stockholm, that's just...
And putting on an event called Slime Ball. He sounds perfect to me. He's a great man.
And he has the most incredible cheekbones as well, which has to be mentioned. They're worth the price of admission alone just for his cheekbones.
Okay. Well,
yes,
there he is.
But it's still, you know, the album I would run for were the Apocalypse, you know, heading down the streets would still be.
All right, there you go.
You know, I got a feeling you mentioned that last time.
Oh, you got a shiny, cover on your copy.
I have got a shiny cover, yes. I don't know.
My cover is not shiny. Why is yours shiny?
Mine could be when it doesn't really say when. I assume I would have bought it roughly at the time it came out, I think, in a sleeve with lyrics. Never can tell. ABC Records. This was made in the UK, so I guess that's different. But yeah, there's still just, again, one of those albums, like a lot of Steely Dan albums up until the last 2 or 3.
Do you know, it's often cited. It's not my favourite Steely Dan record.
Ooh, which one is?
Well, I don't know really, but that's not it. Pretzel Logic, possibly.
Pretzel Logic's a great record.
Oh, I like things like Katie Lied. I love. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
No.
We're not going to fall out over it. That really would be rock snobbery, wasn't it? You hold up the greatest record ever made, and we go, "No, it's not." Sorry, can we edit this? That's right.
We should. That's what we should do, Mark. In future, we should have little cards like skating judges.
Yeah.
So we just both hold up.
We go.
That's a really good idea.
A big thumbs up, or no, it's not, or try again. That's right.
Yeah. Is it Keith or not Keith? I'd say that he's got 2 Keiths for that.
Yes.
Yes, he has. Well, look, lovely to talk to you.
You too.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday.